welcome to week 3 of The Missing Link. I love the 3 chapters that I've just read, but as I always say to you every week, go read those chapters for yourself first before you watch this video, because I'd love to see what comes through you, right, and what comes to you. And I'm really enjoying breaking down this book and only reading. I've read it before, but always kind of in one go. And it's actually really lovely to read it and then close the book and reflect. Like, there are so many 3 Principles books or videos that say, you know, at this point, stop, reflect, take your time. And I never do, right? I just keep reading. And this is something I learned from Dickon as well, actually, when working with him, is the power of stopping and reflecting on what it is that you've read. And that's why these kind of bite-sized chunks are really nice to sit and take some time with and just let them percolate and see what comes through you. So for me this week, I love the first chapter about, I haven't got the names of the chapters in front of me here, but the first chapter that we read, which was, to me, what I took from that was this, about duality, that was it, duality and non-duality. So I love when he's talking about nothing can be separate from the whole. Only the ego can suffer such delusions. So that's wonderful, because to me that means that every time we're feeling lost, every time we're feeling confused, every time we're feeling upset, fearful, indecisive, when we're feeling tense, we have a feeling of separation from the oneness, right? There's me and my projects, there's me and my kids, there's me and my world, there's me and my thoughts, and it all feels like there's something versus something else. And that's the separation, right? There's a feeling, it looks like there's separation in the upset feelings, in the negative feelings. And that feeling shows us that we're lost. It has to be a delusion of the ego, right? Because it's not true. What's true is there is only one thing going on. And there is no duality. There is one thing going on. Mind changing and taking form, changing and taking form. And so anytime we feel alone, every time we feel isolated, every time we feel like we're different, every time we feel that feeling of struggle or tension, it's a sign that we're confused. It's a sign that we've forgotten the oneness that lies behind all life. It means we're caught up in personal thinking. It means we're operating out of our ego. And that's just good to know, because we can take account of it. And what I mean by that is, when we see that we're caught up, when we see that I am thinking about, so for me, my typical would be, I am thinking about this project or this project, right? And I'll get my mind in a tears about that. Or I'll be thinking about, how do I manage, you know, this child's mood versus that child's mood, or this child's mood versus the mood they were in last week, or I've got ideas and I'm trying to decide between 2 things quite a lot of the time, right? That would just be my habitual way of doing it. And that's a delusion of the ego. I know this is going to sound bonkers, but there aren't actually 2 separate children. There aren't actually 2 separate projects. There isn't actually homeschooling and then being in school. There's just the formlessness behind life and the idea that 2 things exist. It's just a thought. Thought is the missing link between the form and the formless. That doesn't mean we need to deny that the apparent reality of 2 children, the apparent reality of 2 projects. Of course not. It would be madness for us to deny what is appearing in front of our very eyes. But we can know what that is made of. We can know that distinction is created through thought. And it changes our relationship with it. And I know that what happens in experience, what happens is that in the realizing, and sometimes not even the realizing, but when thought drops away, sometimes I realize, oh, Nick, you're looking for something in a place it can't be found. You're looking for the answer to that question, and obviously it's not there because you would have found it by now. Put it down. Sometimes I realize that, and thought falls away, and sometimes thought just falls away because that's what it does. Because we're like that elastic band. We always get pulled back to home. And I find myself absorbed in the next task that I'm doing. I find myself not thinking about which should I do. And then at the end of the day, I realize I either did one or the other or none, right? Or I suddenly get quiet and there's just a simple knowing, or there's a filling up with love, and there's a just obvious expression of that, an obvious thing to do. And so what Sid's pointing to here is there is no separation from wisdom. There is no separation from mind. There is no separation from love and understanding. It's just that the ego, Bob, if you read my book, right, will step in and tell us that it doesn't work that way, that it can't be that simple, that it can't be true in that way, that there is a decision to be made, that it's urgent, that it's important, that it has repercussions, that there are two projects, that you need to use your mind in order to figure it out, because if you don't, then the decision won't get made, etc., etc. Insert your own flavour of personal mind. So I love that reminder from Sid that it's only ever the ego that suffers the delusion that there is a separation from that from which we are all made. Again, Sid reminds us to the answers that we found aren't found in the ego, but instead to listen for a positive feeling. Positive feelings bring answers. Delving into the workings of the ego won't. I don't know how many times I need to be reminded of that, but I remember it more quickly. Where I'm trying to figure something out, where I'm trying to figure something out in truth so that I can feel better, so that I can change a feeling that I have. I'm trying to figure out how to work more hours or less hours. I'm trying to figure out how to get my kids better results. I'm trying to figure out how to get I don't know, like arrange my life so it works better so that I can relax. And all those things that I'm trying to figure out, 9 times out of 10, I'm trying to figure out something in order to try and change a feeling, right? And the feeling that I'm seeking, the feeling every human is seeking, is that feeling of just being at home with yourself, being at peace, being at one with the world, right? Just contentedness. Love, understanding, contentedness. Words often bandied around, but in truth, that's what we're looking for. And I'm trying to figure things out in order to find that feeling. I think that feeling lies the other side of figuring things out. And I live like that because my society tells me that's the case. It says you need to figure out like how your business is going to look. You need to figure out how your family's going to look. You need to figure out how long lockdown's going to last. You need to figure all this out, and then your mind can rest. That's what it is. Then your mind can rest. And we think that once we get the answer, then our minds can rest. But instead, it's absolutely the other way around. Which is then we realize that, what I'm looking for can't be found at the other side of an activity or a behavior or a thought chain. It collapses, and in the collapsing of it, we're left right where we started, before thought, with the very feeling that we were looking for all along. And to me, this has become incredibly practical and really, really simple. It's just a reminder I notice that as soon as I start enjoying what I'm doing right now, like if I'm enjoying being here in this video with you guys, and enjoyment just comes from being here now. Anything that we're fully engaged with, anything we're fully interacting with becomes enjoyable. And in that feeling of enjoyment, that's the feeling you're looking for. That's the feeling you think you're going to get from watching these videos and reading the books and figuring stuff out and changing things in your life. And it's right there for the taking right now. I know if you've looked at Aaron's course that we did together, you'll have an inkling of that. But the thing that I think is going to be the other side of, my ego thinks is the other side of figuring stuff out, is here right now without me having to figure it out, without me having to act on the decision, and without me having to think about any of that at all. There's always less to do than you think. Those who don't realize the profound nature of this simplicity of the principles are apt to expound on their findings, losing the essence. Like, I talk a lot, I know that. But I think, to me, what I just shared is the simplicity. Is us looking to the simplicity. We don't believe how simple it can be. It's, you know, I've seen people posting in the Facebook group. So this means I just need to blah, 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 blah. This means that I need to think about these feelings. This means I need to think about these thinking. This means that I need to ignore my thinking. This means I need to... And it's like, no, it's so simple. It's so much simpler than that. What we're pointing to is there is a space before thought. There's this space into which every thought comes. And the simplicity comes from being less interested in what comes after the fact of the space. The space contains the feeling that you're looking for. The space contains the wisdom. The space contains the love and the understanding. The space contains everything you seek. And so there's nothing that's required with all of this stuff. And this will let you know when to pick up thought, use it, and then put it back down again. This has that knowing built in. It knows how to operate. This creates and knows how to operate that which it creates perfectly. So it knows how to create a sunflower, how to grow the sunflower, how to make it get taller, and how to turn its head towards the light and the sun as the day goes by. It knows how to create a sunflower and operate it perfectly. And the same is true with thought. The same is true with human beings, right? This space, this creative, it's a potential, right? It's a potential through which form comes. Contains all the operating instructions, all of the know-how, all of the wisdom, all of the common sense, everything that's required to operate what it creates perfectly and beautifully. That's not your job. And the simplicity of this no thing before thought, that's the simplest element. That's going upstream of all of the different varieties of thought and feeling and behavior. And like, I don't care what flavor it comes in. I don't care how fast it comes. I don't care what behaviors it results in. What I care is that you get a sense of the simplicity of the nothing before any of it arises. Getting a sense of that will give you the positive feeling that Sid keeps pointing you to listen towards. I'm aware I'm expounding on something incredibly simple, but words are the best that I have to point you in the direction of that. Since the beginning, this is another quote from these 3 chapters, since the beginning, the state of any society is a direct result of its conditioned way of thinking. To me, that really spoke to me at the moment as I record this. We're in lockdown with coronavirus in the world. And it's, I don't know what I see about that, but that sentence really speaks to the situation we find ourselves in now, where on so many different levels, right? So the way that we live our lives, the blocks this has put onto our consumerist tendencies, our appreciation for sudden noticing of nature. I read yesterday that the birds are singing more quietly because they don't have to shout so loud against all the noise. Isn't that amazing how nature responds? But the fact that we've created a world in which birds need to raise their voice in order to be heard is a reflection of our society. It's a reflection of our understanding of our conditioned thought in our society. So our conditioning tells us that the world works in an outside-in way. Now, if that were true, then we'd be really, really well off to buy as much stuff as we can, spend as much money as we can, always be interested in getting the next thing, or be really interested in looking beautiful, having the perfect marriage, having the perfect relationship, having the perfect kids, having the perfect career, having perfect health, like more, right? An orientation towards more, better, faster. Get the stuff so that you can be happy. And oh, look, sometimes when I look around in the society that we live in, that's what looks very apparent to me, given this outside in looking understanding that we're conditioned. Now, you're starting to see something different, Sid pointing us to a different way of being in the world, seeing the inside out nature of our experience. And when we look and we see it, it becomes so blindingly obvious. And it changes the way that we live our lives, and it changes the way that we parent our children, and the ripple effect of your seeing changes the conditioned thinking in your environment. And as more and more people are touched by this conversation, as more and more people wake up to the truth, wake up to what's inside of them, wake up to their true nature, society will change. And not by us waking up and then going teaching and coaching, and some of us do that, right? But for most of us, just the mere waking up will mean that we then show up in the world differently, and our seeing and our knowing will touch the hearts of those around us without us having to specifically teach the principles. When you see that your experience comes from the inside out, the need to grasp, to get, to grow, to have, to more, to get the stuff, to have the stuff, to work the hours, to get the stuff, to have the stuff, like all of that stuff starts to dissolve. And your kids watch you and they learn from that. And then their kids watch them and learn from that. And as time goes by over the generations, we see a difference in the way that the world looks outside of us. And then there was a chapter about choosing your teacher. And what I was struck by is the fact that, most therapists, most teachers, most personal development writers and speakers that you hear, trainers, developers of people, are all looking at behavior, right? So we're looking at teachers in schools, everyone around us that's involved in helping us is oriented towards behavior. So it's like, I want you to, when we're kids, we're growing up, it's like, I want you to do this behavior and not that behavior. I want you to behave like this in school and not behave like that in school. This is appropriate behavior, that isn't appropriate behavior. And then we're kind of trained, conditioned to look to behavior all the time. So if we don't like our own behaviors, we seek therapists, right? We seek help, we seek coaches. We're like, I don't like it that I can't speak in public. I need to go find someone to help me with that. I don't like it that I have panic attacks. I need to go find someone to help me with that behavior. I don't like it that my children were behave in a certain way. I need to get some help with that behavior. I don't like it that I smoke too much, I drink too much, I work too much, I don't exercise enough. Like, what can I do to change that behavior? And our therapists hear our questions, how do I change that behavior? And because of the behavioral orientation of psychology, that's where most teachers and therapists look at behavior, like what you're getting up to. If I followed you around with a video camera, what are you actually doing? And the principles conversation, like why selecting a teacher or a coach or a therapist or whatever from with a principles-based background is so different, is because we're oriented towards before behavior, like way upstream of behavior. Like in a way, I couldn't care less what you get up to, like how much you drink, how much you smoke, how much you exercise, how much money you make, whether you speak in public, whether you have panic attacks. Not my business. My business is not what you do, it's the understanding that you have about how life really works. And as that understanding grows, behaviors they change all on their own. Like what it occurs to, what your common sense tells you to do shifts, changes, and looks different depending on your understanding. What your how you show up in the world, if you go outside of yourself to look for your kicks, right? Or whether you know where they really come from. All change behavior. The coping strategies that we have to deal with the problems that we think are real start to change, because we see that if I'm drinking too much because I'm got a problem with my work-life balance, I start to see that my work-life balance is a problem created through thought. As I start to see that, it starts to shift, it starts to change, and I have a different relationship with it. And suddenly the alcohol is no longer required. I start to find a deeper sense of peace and well-being in my soul, and my need to go shopping and party every weekend starts to shift and change. It's like, I don't need to help you with behavior change. I help you really simply see how life really works and who we really are before thought, right? Who and what we really are. And those two things will change your behavior, guaranteed. They can't not. I've seen my own behavior, the way I show up in the world, to my kids, to my clients, to my work, to my garden, to my dog, change over the last 7 years, and will continue to do so. I don't need to worry about my behavior. That's a done deal, given whatever thinking I'm taking to be real, to look real in any moment. And that's the difference with selecting a teacher from a 3 principles orientation. And being a student of that requires a shift. It requires us to move away from constantly asking and examining behavior. But why do I do this? Why don't I do this? Can I do more of that? How do I do more of that? All behavior. Even like, how do I think this? How do I not think that? It's all behavioral. It's after the fact of. And we need to really get an appreciation for where to look. Like, the upstream is the place to get curious about. Like, it's going to sound harsh, but don't bring me questions about your behavior. I'm not qualified to answer those. Bring me your reflections and your curiosity about what happens upstream. That's where the juice is. That's where we're interested in having a conversation. And then we'll see the ripples of effects of that downstream in your behavior, in your approach to life, in your lightheartedness, in your beingness, as a result of your understanding, always a reflection of understanding. And then the last thing that I just want to mention about is the importance of finding your own inner wisdom, as Sid talked about, not taking on the beliefs of anything I say or any 3 principles teacher says. I can say to you, look upstream. And you can go, all right, okay, I'll take that on board. I will look upstream. But until you realize for yourself that that is the place to look, then you're just simply taking on one of my beliefs as one of your own. So it's in realizing, if you realize, like, someone can tell you to get up, then this makes it really practical, right? Someone can tell you to get up an hour earlier in the morning, right? And you can go, oh yeah, that's a good idea. That sounds like very sensible. I'm going to make sure I do that. I can see how it's beneficial to you. I'm going to believe that's true. I'm going to start getting up an hour early every morning. And you can short-term placebo effect, right? You might get some benefit from doing that, but if you realize for yourself, you find yourself getting up an hour earlier in the morning, and you realize for yourself that it's really helpful, or you get up an hour in the morning, you realize it's really unhelpful to do that. That's yours. That's yours to keep forever. You're finding out about what it means to get up an hour earlier in the morning sometimes, right? That's you realizing it for yourself, not taking on board my beliefs about what time you should get up, but go find out for yourself. And I know that's a really practical example, but what Sid is pointing to is the fact that we all have the capacity to realize for ourselves, and it's the only thing worth having. That you telling me, like me telling you how to manage a panic attack, me telling you what time to get up in the morning, me telling you how to run your business, me telling you how to navigate a particular thought storm, is of no use to you, because you're just replacing your beliefs about how to manage a thought storm with my beliefs about how to manage a thought storm. I share with you my insights as an invitation for you to access that same place within you from where insights come.